Chapter 2, Unit Exam Review, number 7. Write the equation of the inverse. Now there are 4 steps to writing the equation of the inverse. The first is to change f of x to y. Step number 2, switch x and y. Step number 3 is to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 4, and I'm going to divide by 6. So now I have y cubed is equal to x minus 4 over 6. That means y is equal to the cubed root of x minus 4 over 6. Now in inverse notation, the inverse of f of x is the cubed root of x minus 4 over 6. All right, now with composition, f in composition with the inverse of f of x means the f of x, the inverse, goes into the f function. So I would leave it in this form that we just had. So that means that I have 6, then in parenthesis I'll put in the inverse, cube it, and add 4. So I'm putting in the cubed root of x minus 4 over 6. Now when I'm taking the cube, when I'm taking here the cubed root of x minus 4 over 6 and cubing it, what I'm getting then is just what's underneath the radical, x minus 4 over 6. And 6 divided by 6 cancels out. X minus 4 plus 4 is just equal to x. Now when I take the inverse in composition with the function f of x, that means that the f function goes into the inverse. So the inverse is the cubed root of x minus 4 over 6. So in place of x minus 4, I'm putting in the f function, which is 6x cubed plus 4. Still in the numerator, I have minus 4 over 6. Plus 4 and minus 4 give you 0. So now I have the cubed root of 6x cubed over 6. The 6's divide out. The cubed root of x cubed is just equal to x. So whenever I have the inverse of a function and I put it in composition with the function, I will always get the identity function, which is equal to x. Number 8, use the graph of f as shown below to graph the inverse function. So when I have these points for f and f of x, I could make a table of values. I have the point negative 2, 3. I have the point negative 1, 0, and I have the point negative 2, negative 2. To then have a table of values for the inverse, I just switch these two columns. So I'm going to have the point 3, negative 2. I'm going to have the point 0, negative 1, and the point negative 2, negative 2. So that if I graph the point 3, negative 2, and I graph the point 0, negative 1, and the point 2, negative 2, I get this graph. And when I take the graph of the inverse and the graph of the function, and I would check it should be symmetric over the line y equals x, and it is. So the easiest way to do a problem like this is to make a table of values with points that are on the graph of f, then switch the x and y column and graph those points, and then you'll have the graph of the inverse. Number 9, find the length of the line segment joining the point 3, negative 2 and 6, 2. Distance is equal to the square root of the difference of the x's squared plus the difference of the y's squared. So I'm going to take them just the way they're written here. The difference of the x's, 3 minus 6 quantity squared plus negative 2 minus 2 quantity squared. 3 minus 6 is negative 3 squared. Negative 2 and negative 2 is negative 4 squared. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 squared is 16. So I'm getting the square root of 25, which is 5. Number 10, find the midpoint of the segment joining the points negative 1, 6 and negative 9, 2. The midpoint formula is the sum of the x's divided by 2, the sum of the y's divided by 2. So for the midpoint here, we're going to add negative 1 plus negative 9 over 2 and 6 plus 2 over 2. Negative 9 and negative 1 is negative 10 over 2. 6 and 2 is 8 over 2. So the coordinates of the midpoint are negative 5, 4. Number 11, use the graph below to answer the following questions. Find the zeros. The zeros is where the graph touches or intersects the x-axis. So we have a value at negative 3, we have a value at negative 1, positive 1, and positive 3. Find the value of x for which f of x equals 2. So when you go to the graph at the value of 2, and then you go up 2, so we're saying where is f of x or y equal to 2? Y is equal to 2 for an x value of positive 2 and an x value of negative 2. Part C, where is f of x or y equal to negative 2? So if you're looking at a value of negative 2 for y, and we get a value here of 0 for x. For D, is this function even or odd? It's even because it's symmetric with respect to the y-axis. E, does it have an inverse? No, because it fails to pass the horizontal line test. So if it does not pass the horizontal line test, it doesn't have an inverse. At f of 0, where x is equal to 0, is there a relative maximum or minimum? There is a relative minimum. And then we want to take g of x, which is equal to x, f of x plus 1 minus 1. So what it's going to do is it's going to take the graph and it's going to shift it 1 unit to the left and 1 unit down. So if we have the point that was at negative 3, it's going to go over here to negative 4, but it's going to drop down 1. That's for that first point. The next point, going from the left, is at the point negative 2, 2. It's now going to have to shift over 1, which would be at negative 3, but it has to drop down 1. So it's going to go to negative 3, 1. Then we're going to take the point which is at negative 1, 0, and we're going to shift it 1 over to negative 2, but drop it down to negative 1. Then we're going to take the point which is at 0, negative 2, and we're going to shift it over 1, which is at negative 1, negative 3. Then we're going to take the point which is at 1, 0. We're going to shift it 1 to the left, which takes it having an x value of 0, and drop 1, so it'd be the point 0, negative 1. And then we're going to take the point which is at 2, 2. We're going to shift it to the left 1, which would take it to an x value of 1, and then shift it down 1, so we're at the point 1, 1. And then the point 2, 0, we're going to shift it back 1 or to the left 1 to get an x value of 1. Instead of a y value of 0, it's going to be a y value of negative 1. So it would be at the point 2, negative 1. So I've taken each one of these points. And so you should see that this graph has shifted 1 unit to the left, and it's shifted 1 unit down. So it's a horizontal shift 1 to the left, and it's a vertical shift of 1 down.